And so from that on pastures and apple trees, I thought I'd read a couple things from Henry David Thoreau's essay, Wild Apples. Our wild apple is wild, only like myself, perchance, who belong not to the aboriginal race here, but have strayed into the woods from the cultivated stock. Wilder still, as I have said, there grows elsewhere in this country a native and aboriginal crabapple, Melis corneria, quote, whose nature has not yet been modified by cultivation, unquote. It is found from western New York to Minnesota and southward. Michaud says that its ordinary height is, quote, 15 or 18 feet, but it is sometimes found 25 or 30 feet high, and that the large ones exactly resemble the common apple tree, unquote. The flowers are white, mingled with rose color, and are collected in corymbs. They are remarkable for their delicious odor. The fruit, according to him, is about 1.5 inches in diameter and is intensely acid. Yet they make fine sweetmeats and also cider of them. He concludes that, quote, if on being cultivated it does not yield new and palatable varieties, it will at least be celebrated for the beauty of its flowers and the sweetness of its perfume, unquote. I never saw the crabapple until May 1861. I had heard of it through Michaud, but more modern botanists, so far as I know, have not treated it as of any particular importance. Thus, it was a half-fabulous tree to me. I contemplated a pilgrimage to the Glades, a portion of Pennsylvania where it was said to grow to perfection. I thought of sending to a nursery for it, but doubted if they had it, or would distinguish it from European varieties. At last, I had occasion to go to Minnesota, and on entering Michigan, I began to notice from the cars a tree with handsome rose-colored flowers. At first, I thought it some variety of thorn, but it was not long before the truth flashed on me, that this was my long-sought crabapple. It was the prevailing flowering shrub or tree to be seen from the cars at that season of the year, about the middle of May. But the cars never stopped before one, and so I was launched on the bosom of the Mississippi without having touched one, experiencing the fate of Tantalus. On arriving at St. Anthony Falls, I was sorry to be told that I was too far north for the crabapple. Nevertheless, I succeeded in finding it about 8 miles west of the falls, touched it and smelled it, and secured a lingering corymbs of flowers for my herbarium. This must have been near its northern limit. The fruit and its flavor. The time for wild apples is the last of October and the 1st of November. They then get to be palatable, for they ripen late, and they are still perhaps as beautiful as ever. I make great account of these fruits, which the farmers do not think it worthwhile to gather, wild flavors of the muse, vivacious and inspiriting. The farmer thinks that he has better in his barrels, but he is mistaken, unless he has a walker's appetite and imagination, neither of which can he have. Such as grow quite wild and are left out till the 1st of November, I presume that the owner does not mean to gather. They belong to children as wild as themselves, to certain active boys that I know, to the wild-eyed woman of the fields, to whom nothing comes amiss, who gleans after all the world and moreover to us walkers. We have met with them, and they are ours. These rites, long enough insisted upon, have come to be an institution in some old countries, where they have learned how to live. I hear that the custom of grippling, which may be called apple gleaning, is or was formerly practiced in Herefordshire. It consists in leaving a few apples, which are called the gripples, on every tree after the general gathering, for the boys, who go with climbing poles and bags to collect them. As for those I speak of, I pluck them as wild fruit, native to this quarter of the earth, fruit of old trees that have been dying ever since I was a boy and are not yet dead, frequented only by the woodpecker and the squirrel, deserted now by the owner who has not faith enough to look under their boughs. From the appearance of the treetop at a little distance, you would expect nothing but lichens to drop from it. But your faith is rewarded by finding the ground strewn with spirited fruit, some of it perhaps collected at squirrel holes, with the marks of their teeth by which they carried them, some containing a cricket or two silently feeding within, and some, especially in damp days, a shell-less snail. The very sticks and stones lodged in the treetop might have convinced you of their savoriness of the fruit which has been so eagerly sought in after past years. I have seen no account of these among the fruits and fruit trees of America, though they are more memorable to my taste than the grafted kinds. More racy than the wild American flavors do they possess when October and November, when December and January, and perhaps February and March even, have assuaged them somewhat. An old farmer in my neighborhood, who always selects the right words, says that, quote, they have a kind of bow-arrow tang, unquote. Apples for grafting appear to have been selected commonly, not so much for their spirited flavor as for their mildness, their size and bearing qualities, not so much for their beauty as for their fairness and soundness. Indeed, I have no faith in the selected lists of pomological gentlemen, their, quote, favorites, and none suches, and seek no farthers, unquote. When I have fruited them, they commonly turn out very tame and forgettable. They are eaten with comparatively little zest and have no real tang nor smack to them. What if some of these wildlings are acrid and puckery, genuine verjuice? Do they not still belong to the Pomaceae, which are uniformly innocent and kind to our race? I still begrudge them to the cider mill. Perhaps they are not fairly ripe yet. No wonder that these small and high-colored apples are thought to make the best cider. Loudon quotes from Herefordshire report that, quote, apples of a small size are always, if equal in quality, to be preferred to those of larger size, in order that the rind and kernel may bear the greatest proportion to the pulp, which affords the weakest and most watery juice, unquote. And he says that, quote, to prove this, Dr. Simons of Hereford, about the year 1800, made one hogshead of cider entirely from the rinds and cores of apples, and made another from pulp only. When the first was found of extraordinary strength and flavor, the latter was sweet and insipid, unquote. Evelyn says that the red straight was the favorite cider apple in his day, and he quotes one Dr. Newberg as saying, quote, in Jersey, 'tis a general observation, as I hear, that the more red any apple has in its rind, the more proper it is for this use. Pale-faced apples they exclude as much as may be from the cider vat, unquote. This opinion still prevails. All apples are good in November. Those which the farmer leaves out are as unsaleable and unpalatable to those who frequent the markets are choicest fruits to the walker. But it is remarkable that the wild apple, which I praise as so spirited and racy when eaten in the fields or wood, being brought into the house, has frequently a harsh and crabbed taste. The saunterer's apple, not even the saunterer can eat in the house. The palate rejects it there, as it does haws and acorns, and demands a tamed one, for there you miss the November air, which is the sauce it is to be eaten with. Accordingly, when Tityrus, seeing the lengthening shadows, invites Melobius to go home and pass the night with him, he promises him mild apples and soft chestnuts. I frequently pluck wild apples of so rich and spicy a flavor that I wonder all orchardists do not get a scion from that tree, and I fail not to bring home my pockets full. But perchance, when I take one out of my desk and taste it in my chamber, I find it unexpectedly crude, sour enough to set a squirrel's teeth on edge and to make a jay scream. These apples have hung in the wind and frost and rain till they have absorbed the qualities of the weather or season, and thus are highly seasoned. And they pierce and sting and permeate us with their spirit. They must be eaten in season accordingly, that is, out of doors.